Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. Well, the thing is my holidays, the coronavirus holidays are technically over. In fact, I only got a week of it. And I've taken it, and the best part about that was that during that week of it, I had my interviews. So it wasn't really a holiday whatsoever. So what are we going to do today? Well, part of what we're going to do today is kind of spurred by my interviews because have you guys ever had this moment where you kind of went for an interview or had a heart to heart with someone and then just got this sort of post event clarity and you're just like, am I really what I just said? The thing with me is I try to be as honest as I can be, and because of that, a lot of my interview is actually quite bare. I don't oversell myself. I don't over promote myself. I kind of try to let my work do the talking for me. But sometimes I think that potentially can hurt me. Anyway, today's topic is primarily motivated by one of the questions I had in my interviews, which was what motivated me to get into medicine. And that's a really doozy of a question, to be honest, because my motivations for pursuing medicines have never been quite straightforward. They've never been the same. In fact, I've found my motivations to have evolved over time. And of course, you've got your conscious motivations, but you've also got other things such as subconscious motivations, which you're never quite so aware of, and they still contribute to your decision making skills. There are always some kind of subconscious inputs going on all the time, which to a degree are going to shape what you are trying to do. So breaking that question down further, it's what even is motivation? Like, motivation seems to be such a big topic everywhere. Everyone seems to be talking about it. Everyone thinks that they're unmotivated, thinks that they can't get things done, thinks that they can't deal with life in general. So what exactly is motivation? So I had a bit of soul searching whilst I was thinking about this, and kind of thought I would have this little chat with you guys because, of course, you guys kind of are friends, I guess, online friends. Yeah, I consider you guys my friends. You guys are my friends. So yeah, let's have a little chat. And anyway, what you guys probably are seeing me doing is I am going to be just practicing a bit of suturing during this video. If you're interested in what I'm doing, I'll be suturing throughout the course of this video. So feel free to not look me in the eye if you don't want to. Anyway, I might as well just tell you what I'm doing right there. You can see I've got this. This here is called a needle holder. Okay, it's a needle holder. It's used to hold needles. Pretty good name, I guess. This right here is the needle inside the needle holder. This is a 3/0 nylon monofilament needle with the suture material there, and I've got my toothed forceps, and I've got a smaller one just in case, and of course I have my scissors. So let's start talking about it. So first of all, what exactly is motivation? The thing is, I can't really define it. Motivation is something that is intrinsic. It comes from within. It is almost like an emotional force that you use to sort of get things done or allows you to orient yourself towards certain goals. So when I think about what made me consider a career in medicine, I have to look at my goals. And my goals have never been quite so simple. My goals have never been the same over the course of my life. In fact, my goals have changed quite rapidly over the course of pretty much every single year over the last 10 years or so. And as a result of that, my motivations have changed as well. In fact, when I first thought about getting into medicine, I was very, very young. And a lot of that motivation came from my parents, who are doctors as well. And of course, because they're doctors, I got a lot of exposure to medicine since a very young age. And that made me more willing to actually pursue the same line of work. And I did. But as I grew up, things changed. Like, because the more you grow, the more you see the horrors of whatever it is that you're looking at. With medicine, that was night duties, dealing with horrible patients sometimes. Because, of course, some patients are angels and some patients can be real, not nice people. Um, so, yeah. And as a doctor, you kind of have to just take it and not do anything. That's pretty much what happened when I did my work experience. I saw how much stuff the doctor had to put up with just to practice. That really made me think about everything, because these people have sacrificed their lives. They have literally sacrificed their. I have sacrificed pretty much the entirety of my teenage pursuing medicine. The journey of medicine starts pretty much when you're in high school, at least in Australia, because I'm an undergraduate medical student. And in order to get into a medical course or an undergraduate medical course, you have to have a high ATAR, which means that you are going to some extent be limited by what subjects you are allowed to do in order to get a good ATAR. And in medicine, and in Victoria, Australia at least, that often involves doing some quite peculiar subjects. And I did all of those peculiar subjects, in fact, because they scale. They scale and they give you a bit of a mark boost when you're done. So what did I do? In high school, I did 3 different maths. I did math methods, further maths, and specialist maths. I did a language. I did French, but I'm a native French speaker, so that was kind of an easy for me. The other thing was I did English. I did chemistry, which is compulsory for medicine, and I did physics. As you can see, half of those subjects not even related to medicine. I didn't even do biology. That's how it works here. Because biology was, at the time that I did VCE, one of the subjects which scaled down, and it would actually give you a mark deficit. Now that I'm in med school, everything just doesn't make sense anyway, so nothing has to make sense. Have you guys ever thought about it? Have you guys ever thought about what motivates you? About what makes you want to pursue whatever it is that you want to pursue? It doesn't have to be medicine, it can be anything. For me, it was medicine, and it kind of did become a kind of an obsession at some point with me. And I guess it's the case with pretty much everyone else who is in this medical faculty. The funny thing is, whenever we do our interviews, they ask us, they pretty much are trying to screen for the people who are obsessed with medicine, but that is basically every one of us. They want well-rounded people, but the way medical school is structured, there is no way you can be a well-rounded person, because there's way too much to do, often not enough time to do it. And when you're out, very often than not, you don't feel confident. And that's pretty much the stage I'm in at right now, because I am what you would call a pre-intern. A pre-intern, if you don't know what that means, is a person who is preparing for their first year in medicine next year. And as a result, things are a little bit different. And I just had my job interviews. Yeah, I did have my job interviews recently. Anyway, I am a pre-intern. And I currently feel like I know absolutely nothing. And I'm not going to be able to be a useful member of the team next year. Which is funny, because everyone else in my cohort feels exactly the same way. I know I'm holding the forceps wrong, but whatever. Can't be bothered. different roadblocks. Like, I think motivation is a thing. I am motivated, and my motivation has, of course, changed, and it has gone up and down depending on the situation I'm in, depending on many different factors. And I think that a lot of the people go through pretty much what I've been through as well, and do not realize that they're actually, if they just sit down and have a little heart to heart with themselves, they can actually get out of the rut and be productive members of society. So the first roadblock that I thought of was paralysis by analysis. This happens a lot to me, as I am quite a perfectionist when it comes to a lot of academically relevant things, such as my assignments, my essays, and things like that. Even though I hate writing essays, English was my absolute worst subject, and I hated it. Very often than not, what you're going to do is you're going to analyze as much information as you can potentially find in order to structure your own work. And just that act of trying to find as much information as possible is just going to paralyze you to an extent in terms of procrastinate. It's like active procrastination basically, because you'll just be trying to find more and more and more and more and more information to try and make your piece to be the absolute best, and you just nothing else would do, you know. So how can you get out of that? I think setting times for that is useful. In many cases, I think just sitting there and just making a note of how much work you need to get done within a certain time frame is useful. Because if you give yourself unlimited time, you're going to waste unlimited time. If you give yourself a deadline, you're going to work to the deadline, because there are consequences of not meeting a deadline. And if you can somehow make those consequences severe enough in your brain might get out of that little rut of paralysis by analysis, and all of a sudden you're a lot more productive. So that's one of the things I would do, because it was actually one of the things that I struggled with myself. In fact, basically everything in preclinical and the early part of clinical, I was so worried about submitting something that was subpar that I would often just sit there for hours upon hours, just analyzing more and more and more and more articles which had nothing to do with my topic. And that just ended up making me bloat whatever my essay was about to huge, huge, huge word counts. For example, at one point I had an essay which was, I think, 1,000 words or something like that, and my first draft for it was 6,000 words. That's that's how ridiculous my analysis got. I had like how many 27 different references for that particular assignment, and I'd say almost half of them were completely not related directly to it. They were like, like the third and fourth relations and things like that, related by by links and things like that. They don't directly answer the topic, and that was just irritating. So what do I do now about that? Now I just sort of do my own thing. I set a deadline. I get the work done by that deadline. If it's up to par, then that's it. I submit it. If it's not up to par, I get it reviewed by someone else, usually my colleague, because sometimes you can be overly harsh about whatever it is that you've done, and that can cause issues. Oh, look at that. I made a little X suture. It's a little X suture. Very good for hemostasis. Very good for hemostasis. But I'm not going to lock this suture because I don't have an unlimited supply of sutures. So I'm going to just draw this out and do another X suture in practice. Yeah, so I just set a deadline, did my best job for that deadline, and then got someone to review it if I wasn't too happy, and then if they said it actually was crap, then I would redo it, or I would make the changes and then submit it. That way, everything got done within a reasonable amount of time. I still had enough time to get other things done. I was overall quite happy, as opposed to what I was like in second year, where I was not happy. And things did not look great because of that. And out, out, out. Beautiful. And we grab it and pull it out. Oh no, I pulled out the wrong end. This is what happens when you try to suture on foam. It's an absolute useless piece of material to try and do anything with. But such is life. Okay, I think that's enough about paralysis by analysis. Just set a deadline and stick to it. And if you're not sure about the work, get someone else to review it for you. Because usually what happens is you're just overly critical and your work is probably not that bad. Moving on. The next thing is holding yourself up to unrealistic standards. I do this so much, it's not even funny. When I'm trying to learn about something, I go into way too much detail a lot of the time. And as a result of that, I often end up holding myself to unrealistic standards regarding that topic, because there's this little paradox in basically learning anything, and that is that the more you learn about something, the less you will feel like you know about it. And that's generally true for basically everything in medicine. No, 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 no locking, no locking. Do not lock. Do not lock. Do not lock. Do not lock. Please. Yeah, that's generally one of the things in medicine, is that the more you learn about something, the less you feel like you know about it. So what can end up happening is you set out on this little course that I'll master medicine, or I'll master surgery, I'll master everything. And at the end of it, you just get disappointment, because there is no way you're going to master anything, because no one can master anything. You can never achieve a level of mastery, ever. You can get close to it, and you can get lots of experience in it, but you'll never master it. If you think you've mastered it, you probably don't know as much as you probably should know. There's that general rule as well they talk about, which is the 10,000 hour rule. So you need to do at least 10,000 hours of practice of something in order to consider yourself a master. But talk to anyone who is considered a master. They will never say that they are a master. They will say that they're still learning, they still have tons of learning to do. And whatever you're seeing is just the result of tons of failure. And that's usually true, because in high anxiety situations, it's usually your experience from failures which comes into use. Very little of your knowledge comes into use. You can't learn medicine, for example, through books, even though I have 5 million of them right there. I learn way more from a patient than I do from any of those books over there. Those books build a nice foundation, but it's the patient contact which actually builds your characteristics as a medical doctor. Anyone can buy those books, not anyone can have access to patients. So yeah, don't hold yourself to unrealistic standards, and just understand yourself as much as you can. I guess this will require, to an extent, some degree of heart to heart with yourself, and yeah, do your best. Tying into that is also the fact that you probably are not holding yourself up to your own standards. You're probably holding yourself up to someone else's standards. For example, maybe you're looking at potentially the top student in your class and you're like, oh, this guy's obviously doing something great. This guy is studying for 200,000 hours a day. I probably should do the same. And you will be so unhappy if you do that. It's not even funny. You'll be really, really, really unhappy. Don't do that. Don't try to compare yourself to other people, because you're different from everyone else. You are different from everyone else. And as a result, you cannot put yourself in the same shoes as that person, nor can they put you in the same shoes as them. So don't feel bad about not being as good as someone else, because that is a very unrealistic expectation to have. What you should do instead is you need to try and strive to be better than yourself. This is the whole concept of self-development and self-improvement, which is extremely useful and extremely powerful, I guess, because in that case you try and find your own, to an extent you're trying to find your own overall limit. Because if you try to limit yourself based on what the other person is capable of, you'll be holding yourself to the other person's limit, and you potentially would not reach your own full potential. So not a good idea to do that. Try and be better than you were yesterday. Try to set low goals, try and see if you can accomplish those goals, and everything will sort of fall into place from there. Okay, next is, what was the next thing I want to talk about? Okay, so the next thing is you're probably not getting motivated because you're not happy about what it is you're doing. This is actually way more common than people think. I've come across a lot of people who are not happy about what they're doing. And when you're not happy about what you're doing, it's very difficult to motivate yourself to pursue anything in that regard. So what do you do in that case? Usually you're probably locked to it if you have the ability. There usually isn't much you can do in that regard. Have a little think to yourself in that sense, I guess, then what it is that makes you happy, what is it that makes you passionate. In my regard, for example, I sacrificed pretty much everything that I held dear to pursue medicine. In fact, in second year of medical school, we had some big catastrophe go on in my house, which led to me having to give up cricket. I had to give up cricket. I was quite passionate about cricket, and I had to give it up because it was just not sustainable anymore with the new stressors that were in place. And of course, balancing medical school on top of that was just a nightmare in itself. So, what can you do? Like, I'm going to be realistic here. I'm not going to tell you to just quit because I know most of you are not going to have that option available to you. If you've already committed yourself to something, it's very difficult to go back. I'd say maybe try and find maybe some kind of subtopic in there that potentially interests you. For example, I hated English when I was in high school, but I did like creative writing. I did like poems. I did like things which were a lot more fun in that regard. So a bit, which obviously were not taught. We were just taught about how to write analytical essays and text responses about the 5 billion reasons why Macbeth was a stupid person, and that was just not my cup of tea. So I made up for that by writing little stories and things like that, and that ended up helping me because it maintained my standard of writing overall. And at the end of the day, that's what counts. A lot of the essays you're going to write are just practice. It's all practice for that one final essay in your exam. So whatever you can write or muster writing is good in that regard. Yeah, so just try and find something that is interesting to you in that particular topic. For example, in medicine, many people hate psychiatry but are very interested in neuroscience, not realizing that psychiatry is just a physical manifestation of neuroscience. And yeah, things get quite interesting because your behavior is actually a symptom, could actually be a symptom of underlying pathology. So even as a neurosurgeon, I guess it's a good idea to know how different parts of your brain affect your behavior. And if they don't work properly, then you could end up with certain signs which you'll be able to diagnose things with. Anyway, moving on to the next thing is mental health. Mental health. Like, are you guys happy with your mental health? Are you guys happy with the way you are dealing with everything? The number of people who are depressed in my age group, which is 18 to 24, is increasing at a very, very, very rapid rate in the recent times. And I don't blame you. The vast majority of us are having to deal with things which are pretty brand new. Everything is getting expensive, everything is getting unattainable. Many of the boomers have unrealistic standards and don't know what to do. And sometimes when you can't live up to these expectations or live up to these standards, you can actually end up in a depressed state. I'm not here to give you a diagnosis of depression, but if any of the following words sound like it might be you, I would suggest seeing a GP and potentially getting the right help. First one is appetite. Has your appetite changed? This includes increase or decrease. Secondly, has your weight changed? Have you been gaining weight or losing weight? Thirdly, how does your mood seem like? Do you feel depressed? Do you feel low all the time? Do you feel like you might not be coping with whatever it is that is going on? Fourthly, how has your overall energy levels been? Do you feel full of energy or do you feel lethargic? Next, sleep. How's your sleep been recently? Do you feel like you're sleeping enough? Do you ever feel like you don't sleep at all? Do you feel insomniated? Do you feel like you're sleeping way too much and you've become a bit of a bed potato? You can't leave the bed? Have you had any significant changes to your bodily functions, such as if you're a girl, have your cycles been different recently? Of course, your cycles can be different for many different reasons, but depression can also cause problems with your menstrual cycle. How has your bowel motions been recently? Do you feel constipated? Do you feel like you have diarrhea? How has your concentration been recently? Do you feel like you're concentrating enough? Do you think like you're getting things done? Do you feel like you want to get up in the morning and conquer the world? And finally, I think it is, have you had any thoughts about potentially causing yourself any kind of harm, or have you thought about taking your own life? These final two thoughts, if the answer is a yes, I would seek help immediately. There are lots of suicide helplines available online, and please call one of them. You are potentially in crisis. Yeah, don't. Whatever you do, do not take mental health for granted. Many people do, and it ends up causing quite horrible things to them because mental health is one of those things which can literally paralyze you from within. If your mental health is not up to scratch, you're just not going to be functional as a person. And in those instances, it's extremely important for you to seek the right help and get whatever it is that is required for you in your case, because everyone needs different things, everyone has different needs. So please get the right help. See your GP, see a psychologist, see a psychiatrist if needed, and take care of yourself. Because at the end of the day, you're the only person who's out there to look out for yourself. And if you don't look out for yourself, no one else will. Do your best in that regard. And you never know, maybe if you're feeling low and you're feeling unmotivated, it might just be because you're feeling depressed. Maybe you're just overwhelmed. Maybe there's been something horrible that happened to you recently. Maybe your boyfriend left you, maybe your girlfriend left you, maybe your dog passed away, maybe your cat passed away, maybe there's been a significant thing that happened recently. Maybe you set a goal which you couldn't accomplish, and that just sort of set off this domino effect, and now you're in this state where motivation is quite hard to get. So I'd see that as well. Don't play with your mental health. It's extremely powerful and extremely debilitating if it goes wrong. Anyway, and as usual, I'm pretty sure I'm way off topic. But yeah, I think I'm done. I've done enough practice with this for now. I'll do some more later. I might do some running and subcuticular sutures and things like that. But you guys don't need to see that. I don't think you guys even saw this because the exposure on this stupid thing is so high. Thank you for watching. I'll post impromptu videos like this every so often. I don't think I'm even a productivity channel anymore. I'm probably become like a lifestyle channel at this point. So whatever it is, if you want to see more, do subscribe, like, leave a comment if you took anything out of this video, because it was just all over the place and a bunch of babbles. Let me know. Okay, take care, treat yourself well, and I'll see you guys next time.